Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today, joining us is Nick Ryder. He is the founder and president of Esports Ohio, an organization obviously based in esports out of Ohio, like the name pretty much tells us. So without really any further ado, Nick, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your background in esports, what started your passions in the gaming sphere, and what kind of sparked the idea behind Esports Ohio, and how you kind of developed that and how it came to be.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, talk about esports. Well, myself, Nick Ryder, I am a director of technology as my day job. I work for a K-12 public school district in Northwest Ohio, and I'm a gamer myself. Not a competitive gamer by any means, but I enjoy gaming. And I'm a teacher. I'm a former coach, former athletic director, as well as just an all-around advocate for students and creating enthusiasm and excitement in learning. So obviously esports was a natural fit for me and what I do on the day-to-day in my day job, as well as now what we do day-to-day in our nonprofit organization. So I guess the long and the short story is we were cruising around the school, me and a few other teachers who always like to try and find out what ignites passion in our students. And every time we went into a study hall, we would see students on their Chromebooks streaming other people playing Fortnite. And I'm teetering. I'll age myself. I'm in my 30s, so it's like, why are these students watching everyone else play video games all day during their study halls? And so I was digging into it a little bit. It brought me back to some of my roots of when I was too scared to play Resident Evil growing up, so I watched other people play it, and I was like, okay, I can relate to that. That makes sense. So I took that and I built on it. I was like, our local university, Tiffin University in Northwest Ohio, they were one of the biggest universities to get on board early and actually built like a 4,000 square foot facility to house the first esports team in Ohio in a large location like that and make that kind of investment. So I ran over there to do some investigative work to see, hey, esports, is it really viable? And this was 2.5, 3 years ago. And I saw what they were doing. I saw the scholarship opportunities that they were providing students, right in my neck of the woods, 20 minutes from our campus. And it was like, we have to provide these opportunities for kids to get involved, not just in competitive gaming, but everything else that goes around competitive gaming and esports. We'll talk about that here a little bit more, but so I took it back to my school district. I got a couple other passionate schools that are around that said, hey, we've been trying this with some of the larger national orgs. We haven't had much success. We're having to reschedule, at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night to play schools out in California. It's just not working. So we got a beta group around, and, we had 16 school districts the first season. We did a test run, and it worked beautifully. We did all of our communication through our Discord channel and set up a league structure and set up, game rule sets and, modeled some of based on what's going on in the professional scene all the way down from the collegiate to high school. And we structured it for high school competition. In 7-week season, 16 school districts finished all 7 weeks. And we were able to do a finals and proof of concept. It worked amazing. So fast forward 2.5 years, we now have 130 school districts, 2,600 student participants. These are actual numbers, not some of the inflated numbers that you might see out in cyberspace on some of the other leagues. These are students that we're impacting that all competed, that all were part of, either a competitive team or they were part of the, support team that does the shoutcasting, the broadcasting, the social media marketing, media development, so on and so forth. So that's kind of our journey where we've come. It just started as a passionate group of educators taking the first steps. We joined forces with a couple of esports collegiate coaches, as well as some business advisors to help us really give insights of the industry and make sure we're doing things the right way for kids and to make sure that we have that pathway to collegiate and farther, whether it be in esports or, one of the support systems that esports, encompasses. So that's kind of Esports Ohio in a nutshell. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that puts kids first. I know you hear everyone say kids first, but we truly mean it. Every decision that we make is for the best interest of providing kids an opportunity to connect with esports, whether it be in, competitive esports or one of the support systems like we were talking about. I wish somebody did this for me, 15 years ago, and I had an opportunity to play and to build skills based on esports, but it just didn't exist. So now we're paving that pathway to make sure it does.
Yeah, absolutely. That just sounds so phenomenal, right? And I think, we both align really closely in those views of kids first, right? What's best for the kid? Because like we were talking about before we started recording, there's so many passions surrounding esports that isn't gaming competitively, right? Like you were just said earlier, it's broadcasting, shoutcasting, streaming, social media, right? There's so many different avenues. So kind of going off that point into my next question, is why do you view, and your passionate group of teachers and administrators, why do you view these skills and opportunities as so valuable, especially in the current digital age, for these students to continue to pursue and have a platform like yours to be able to pursue them and kind of take them to that next level wherever that is?
Now, I guess I'll lead into that with kind of a stat that we're most proud of, and I personally am most proud of. 75% of our participants, this is the first ever extracurricular sport that they've been involved in. So we're reaching a demographic of kid that has never been reached before in a school setting. We're giving them an opportunity to succeed in something, to give them a home in something in school, to get involved, to build these social skills, these relationships, and teamwork, communication, collaboration, being part of it, part of something. And we're
Mm-hmm.
doing that not just through competitive esports, but half of my roster in my program are the people that do the behind the scenes work. They build the machines, the custom gaming rigs. They do
Mm-hmm.
the network development in my course. We structured it to A plus CompTIA, the certifications to become a network technician or a computer engineer. So we're actually building the machines, we're designing the network, and we're installing it in our classroom. So that's kind of my background because I'm in IT, that I can kind of relate to the kids and get them pumped up. And then after that, we've expanded to media production. We've got our own streaming setup with OBS, some cameras, some casting that goes on in our labs, just like some of the collegiate programs we're modeling after. Boise State, for example, we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
budget or the stuff that they have, but we're like a mini Boise State kind of in our own organization. And these skills, like you said, these are skills that the students wouldn't necessarily pick up unless they were provided these opportunities. So these kids, now they have the ability to, set up a stream. Maybe they only have a Chromebook at home. So, they can't start OBS. It won't work on a Chromebook. They
Yep.
won't be able to stream to Twitch and build a following and develop a voice for themselves. They just don't have that opportunity with the equipment they have. In schools, schools, they have computer labs for the most part. Most schools already have a CAD or engineering lab that they can borrow from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock to
Mm-hmm.
practice in esports after school, or to compete in gaming competitions that we have, or just to do multimedia and support and design and social media marketing, everything that
Mm-hmm.
aligns so perfectly well to esports. And these are skills that translate not only into career opportunities and skills that are tangible skills that you can take with you, but they also are translating into career pathways and graduation pathways at the high school level. So like A plus and Net plus are industry certified credentials through CompTIA that can be used to help for graduation, in high school. So these are viable things not only for careers and collegiate, next steps, but they also will help you now at the high school level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention all the social skills. I have kids that have never talked to anybody. They have no group of friends. They have no part of anything in school. They just are disconnected, and this connects them. It plugs them in. It gives them an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to make a mark for themselves and build those relationships and really come out of their shells. And that's been the coolest thing for me so far, is to see someone come in who has no relationships with anybody in the building, hasn't sparked anything yet, and now at the end, their parents are coming to practice and baking us baked goods and saying thank you, for
Mm-hmm.
providing this opportunity for our students. And,
Mm-hmm.
and and kids that never thought about going to college, never thought about doing this at the next level, they're starting. You can see them turning. You're like, well, maybe I could,
Mm-hmm.
possibly use this skill in something. Or I'm not very good at video games, but you know what? I really like designing graphics for the stream and
Mm-hmm.
animations using, After Effects that we use in our OBS streams. And I think I could do that. I think I could
Mm-hmm.
work freelance or work for a company and do that, you know, right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. I
just
think.
these opportunities. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know. Like we could talk all days about these opportunities because there's so much. And the thing I always challenge parents to, because a lot of parents come up that don't really know what esports is or don't have the best sense like we do. It's well, what's the next step, right? Are my kids going to go to college? What kind of job do they get? Like, is they going to be a pro gamer? And it's like, no. I instead challenge you to name an industry or a job type that I can't apply directly to esports, right? And no one's been able to yet.
Yeah.
Just on that fact that there's so many different pathways, and the best part is esports provides that passion, right? Where the kids, the students, they want to pursue it because they're passionate about it, they like doing it. So they wake up and they're saying, "How can I get better at X, Y, Z? How can I, get a scholarship? What can I do better for my little mini project?" And then obviously with all those skills that they have, it's really easy to transition into the workforce and get hired by any employer. Because if you check off all those boxes, you'll probably get hired pretty quickly out of college, if not directly out of college. So absolutely
Definitely.
phenomenal there.
Yeah, we're trying to build that pathway to help at
Mm-hmm.
the high school level to build, successfully up until, collegiate and career. If they decide to go to college or if they decide to go to directly into careers, they will have that opportunity as well. So we're actually working with NASIF out in California. We're part of the Ohio affiliate for NASIF. We work with a STEM org out of Columbus called the Past STEM Foundation, which is fantastic work in curriculum development and teacher training. So we're actually using some of the curriculum designed and developed by NASIF, and we're
Mm-hmm.
adapting that into Ohio State standards. So we'll be
Mm-hmm.
training teachers to actually roll this out as a curricular development piece. So students will actually could take this as a course in high school if they wanted to, or they could do it as an after-school activity
Mm-hmm.
as well as structuring the competitive play to go with that. The way
Mm-hmm.
that we see that is similar in a high school setting to like a DECA, where you have competitions that go with the marketing development that goes with it as well, or like a Vex Robotics where you learn engineering and then you actually build the robot and compete against other teams. So we're doing the same thing with esports. It's not a foreign concept, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just hear gaming and they're like, oh, okay, you guys are just in the basement eating Doritos and playing
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite. So
Yeah, and that's exactly that kind of like first gut instinct or gut message that like I think so many people are trying to change in the esports space, right? And we have to kind of fight mainstream media and fight social media as well to a certain degree because that's just kind of the accepted value, right? And it's working to change that and working to show like, hey, look at everything involved, right? And like you've had kids in your programs where parents come back. We've had kids in our camps and programs where they come back and the parents come in on the last day of camp, the last day of the program, they're like, wow, I never knew any of this, right? I think it's just those small steps that over time start to build to change that perception. So absolutely phenomenal. One question I did want to ask you is we talked a lot about that one stat line, the 75 participants and students that this is their first extracurricular, right? I think this is great. I think that's one thing that esports really elicits is that sense of community, right? That community that a lot of these students just never found. They never found it in football. They never found it in band. They never found it in any of the other extracurricular opportunities. It just never fit them, right? But esports does, gaming does. It gives them that community. So have you ever had an experience that kind of elicits that sense of community or sense of belonging that you've seen these students kind of just really hold on to and grasp onto and really be able to grow from there?
definitely, definitely. One of the biggest examples, I guess I have a couple examples, but we were blessed to secure a location at a university in Ohio last fall before COVID hit, and we had a fall finals tournament. We brought in 500 spectators into a tournament central, and we had 12 different school districts, or I'm sorry, 20 different school districts from around the state, some traveling up to 3.5 hours to get to the
Mm-hmm.
location. We had over 150 student competitors, and we put them all together on a college campus one day, and we had ourselves a 12-hour tournament across 4 titles. It was awesome. Everybody got together. They built the community, and some of these people that have been playing remotely, for the past 7 weeks in competition, they got to see each other face to face. They got to really have that camaraderie, that experience of, oh my gosh, they're right here. I'm playing in a college setting, a college atmosphere. These real opportunities were starting to click. You saw the light bulbs going off on everyone's faces. You saw their parents, wearing Esports Ohio shirts and,
Mm-hmm.
and custom made shirts for their kids, rooting them
Mm-hmm.
on. I had parents come up to me for the first time and they said, I never thought that I would be able to go to a sporting event and watch my son or daughter play. And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm here and they just want to hug you and they're like, thank you for making this opportunity real for my kids and
Mm-hmm.
meaningful. And just that aspect of it was amazing. We brought in our student shoutcasters. We looked at our best casting crews from the season who did it in
Mm-hmm.
their own programs, and we invited them to come do the casting for the finals. So you got to use a better setup than what they were traditionally used to at their school district, at the college program, and we put them into the streams. We had over 5,000 people watching our streams concurrently. It was crazy. It was just a very good. It was like the culmination of fall last year, and now we've got these people that are connected to us through the Discord channel now, and we've made students the moderators of the channel, community leaders, and they've developed these relationships that they didn't have before, and it's just like anyone else going to a basketball camp, a football camp, or connecting, playing AAU ball or something like that. They have the opportunity to build these relationships, and they never did before.
Yeah, and I think that's that kind of that experience right there just encapsulates what esports can be everywhere at the national level, at an international level, in all these different communities. Because, like you said, it gives the parents and the students like something that they connect on, right? That they never really had before. Because all of a sudden, if my kid or my student was like, "Oh my God, I love doing this. Come watch me play Rocket League, League of Legends, or whatever," and you go see that passion, and they're striving to get better. They're striving to get better themselves. I think as a parent, there's nothing better, right? And that's exactly what esports can encapsulate. And it's just having platforms like yours really grow that space over time, right? Because, esports is, I still say, kind of like a toddler right now. It's growing so fast. It's exploding all over the place. But, hasn't quite hit that like mainstream acceptance yet for like the everybody in the world type idea, which I think just a question of time, right? It's when, not if. But yeah, absolutely.
And one thing we're doing to help develop that at the high school level that we really want to work on is, gaming can be toxic. We're not going to sit here in this call and pretend like it can't be toxic. Gaming sometimes is toxic by nature. So the better we can do at our level, at the K-12 level, to build it up to when we get to the collegiate level, it builds the scene. And one of our rules is that it has to be structured correctly through a school sanctioned by an advisor or a coach of the program. They have to oversee the kids, and they have to set the rules and expectations just like any other sport. And then the students have to follow through, because one thing you have to remember with esports, everything's recorded, so if you make a bad comment, you can ask one of the thousands of examples that are out there on Twitch of people being removed from streaming casts and professional teams for making that one slip up that they never should have done, and it ruins them forever. So if we can instill that lesson in our young people and make sure, hey, when you're in front of that camera, you are at church, your grandma's there, and everyone else who you respect and love, and they are watching, and they have the ability to see everything you say and do. So to make sure you're on your best behavior and make sure you're representing your school district and yourself the best way that you can. And I think we can do that through esports to, these are big life lessons, not just gaming, not just the tangible professional skills, but making people better people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit that right in the head, right? I always say to any of the students that kind of come through any programs or anyone that I come in contact with is with social media, you press send or post or enter or whatever, it's out there forever, right? And you see it in esports, you see in traditional sports of these athletes or competitors that start to gain a little bit of momentum, and then a tweet comes up from their past, right? Or they slip up one night on stream, and all of a sudden they're just shunned from the community, right? So it's always be very careful. And I think that structure that you're talking about kind of provides that, right? So much of that toxicity, I feel like, grows because there's no one saying like, why'd you say that? You shouldn't say that, right? That's not cool, right? Because there's not a lot of coaches, there's not a lot of like structured leagues. It's just, a Wild West online play mostly. So I think with that structure and those dedicated coaches, all of a sudden you start to see like, leadership and setting a good example. And I think that trickles down really quickly. So I absolutely agree there. Kind of my last question for us before we run out of time, unfortunately. I obviously love these discussions on Spincast. And I think this is one of the exceptional ones with you, Nick. But my last question, I kind of asked everybody, is we're going really general, really broad, looking towards the future of esports, right? And we'll do in the high school sense because that's at the level we're talking at. What's one thing that you think could be improved on or changed, or maybe something that doesn't exist now that needs to exist to really bring high school esports to be like all expansive, all inclusive across the board, right? Because there's great programs kind of sprinkled everywhere throughout the country, especially in the United States, but it's not like mainstream like football or basketball, right? So what do you think that one thing might be that really kind of springboards us to that next level, right?
Well, I think it's going to take kind of a collective of a unification of what's accepted for esports. I mean, they're struggling with the same thing at the collegiate level right now. You've got lots of so-called governing bodies. You got so many people that are in charge of publishers who are in charge of their own events, publishers who are in charge of their own tournament guidelines and community guidelines, so on and so forth. So I think there's going to need to be a general consensus of publishers, number one, saying, hey, in high school esports, we agree that this is the way that we should run things. And, give that opportunity to local levels to take care of that. Just we know how to run our state organizations, just like we know how to run our state athletic organizations. Every state in our country knows the local needs of their schools and what's going on. So it's going to take a collective of either those organizations running through the state athletic organizations or organizations like ours. And there are many states like ours that do similar kind of missions. And we're going to need the blessing from the publishers in tournament guidelines to say, hey, we give you guys full access to our games. Here's our expectations. And I think if we have a national org that kind of is a coalition of all of our state orgs, same thing at the university level, that can talk with these publishers and say, hey, here's a general tournament guideline that we'd like to see. I think that would solidify esports at the national level, because let's be honest, basketball's, it's a little easier. You just say, hey, this is the rule set. This is how we play basketball. Everybody go play basketball. Esports are so versatile, which makes them the best because there's so many options, so many things you can do. But it also makes them very challenging because there is no one size fits all. What you might do in a Rocket League tournament may look way different than what you do in a League of Legends tournament. So you have to be able to adapt and change. But I think if we could get, one kind of, just a gentleman's agreement or something like that for a tournament structure, or, these are the expectations of a tournament, and follow through those expectations, I think that would solidify esports at the high school level.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would remove that toxicity. It would remove, any potential problems, and put people in accountable.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that structure is so desperately needed kind of at all levels, even at the collegiate level and even at the pro level. You just see a ton of different competitions that overlap, or they're trying to outcompete someone. And all of a sudden, especially at the collegiate level, there's 3 or 4 championships going on in the same weekend or within a week of each other, right? And it's like, how do you prepare for all of them, or are you expected to play in all of them, right? And I think that kind of goes to a hot topic of an organization like the NCAA, right? And I think there's a lot of pros and cons of that massive kind of industry in itself getting involved with the NCAA from the collegiate perspective, but it kind of on that same kind of generalization of what that structure looks like, right? That structure is something we need, with still, I think, like you said, esports is so versatile. So there has to be a little bit wiggle room, so to say. So I agree exactly with what you said there as the next step. But unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you, Nick, again, for joining us and taking the time to sit down with us here at Stay Plugged In on Spincast to talk about esports at the high school level. Real quick, if you will, Nick, go ahead, plug yourself, plug Esports Ohio. Tell us where we can find you on social media, website, anything else.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Nick Ryder, founder and president of Esports Ohio. Come check us out at esportsohio.org. We'll be doing amazing things with high school students, and esports and educational opportunities will be provided. Come join us and keep the mission going. Game on.
Yep, absolutely. Go check them out. I was checking their stuff out a little earlier today and yesterday, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I love to see your kind of platforms and organizations come to fruition and be successful at all those different perspectives and approaches within esports, because I think that's ultimately what will change esports for the better over the next few years, and really catapult us going from that infant, I kind of said earlier, into a child and eventually an adult as well, as good as that is an analogy can take us. But to our listeners and viewers, thanks for staying the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy, especially during the pandemic. Make sure you take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and ultimately stay plugged in.